Once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Brian Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Pride, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel, and tonight I think we got a pretty good show for you guys. I'm going to have a former CSI investigator who has investigated crimes from homicide to burglary to missing persons and everything else in between. And we're going to talk about some of the evidence in the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. We're going to talk about the most recent ransom form, I guess. It's not really an email. It's like an online tip thing that they're filling out. So we're going to talk about that, what that could mean. Maybe perhaps some shoes. I think we may have found a logo on a shoe. And so we're going to be going into all of that and much more. Please hit the like button. That really helps out the algorithm. If you guys would help me do that. Hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Without further ado, let's bring the guest of honor. How's it going, Steve from True Crime Web? How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, sir. And speaking of honors, honor to be on your show as always. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Of course. It's been a few days. We've gone back and forth on a few things. Before we get into all that, I want to start off with the ransom notes. Now, we know a little bit more information. We know that the notes were addressed to Savannah, or at least the first one was. We also know that there's some conflicting information on whether or not there was an apology, and there was a confirmation of the passing of Nancy. And these were done in a series of a matter of, I think, a few days. So it was February 2nd, the day after she disappears. According to Howard Bloom, in the evening is the first time that one of the news outlets gets a ransom note. And then over the next 2 days, another news station and TMZ get another one. And then after that, about 5 days after that is when the third one or the final one comes in. Do you think that these are more possibly real now with the information that's coming out, or what are your thoughts on them?
Well, if the family, of course, law enforcement ultimately has the final decisions, and they have far more information than we have. And the media is going to play up whatever storyline and narrative that they want to get views right now. So I don't know really if the media is pushing this just for the views and clickbait, or if it's actually true, and details that only someone that was at the crime then absolutely notes. It's all through news narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And, but some of the supporting evidence that we have is the sheriff did from pretty well on has always defended the fact that it was an abduction. And is that due to the notes or some information that certain things were placed certain places within the home, and are key supporting evidence within those notes? Until I hear from a law enforcement, I know how news media and social media can twist things, so I'm pretty neutral on it right now.
Yeah, one of the things that Harvey says from TMZ is that the FBI believed that these were credible and real. They use the term believed, which is past tense. I don't know if that means that they still do. According to some of these other, news outlets, they're pretty confident that they believe that they are real, at least a couple of them. Let's go under the, let's see. It took a day and a half for the letters to come out, or the ransom note. Let's start off there. Let's just say, well, a day and a half. Do you think that's enough time for somebody to come up with information? Now, here's what the information is alleged to have been in the ransom note that ties them to the crime scene. They claim to know what Nancy was wearing. They claim to know about a destroyed floodlight, the location of an Apple Watch as well, inside of the house. What do you think that those things are? I mean, what she's wearing, if that's accurate, I would assume that this is a pretty good indication that it's real.
Well, how do we know what she was wearing unless law enforcement has some part of a video somewhere that they haven't released yet showing what she had on after hours? Because as we all know, how many of our wives have multiple pajama sets, or and which ones do they wear on a specific night? And so does law enforcement have something that says, oh, yes, that is what she's wearing? Because otherwise, I mean, how do you know?
That's true. I mean, they may have put she was wearing something, but they may not have been able to confirm that. My assumption is if they were, it's probably, she was wearing a bright blue nightgown. And, they might go to, the family that was very close to her, Tommaso and Annie, ask, hey, did she have a bright blue nightgown? And is it missing?
Correct.
And so I think that's probably the only way that they're going to be able to confirm that without visual evidence of it.
Yeah, there has to be some supporting evidence that if it's something that she's wearing, unless they supplied could they have taken a picture of her and left at the crime scene of her? I don't know. There's a lot of ways, but I do find it strange, that you have an abductor that has access to her phone at the time. While I know it's risky, or it would be extremely risky to take her phone, but you most certainly could force her to open the phone and take those key contact phone numbers and text messages and write those numbers down or photograph them or whatever, so that you could have direct contact with the family and not have to go through the news media. So why is the purpose of going through the news media is a totally different narrative than what I would expect from a normal kidnapping with an abductor who has access to the victim and all their contact information.
That is interesting. I mean, I don't know if it would be something that would stay off. I mean, if we were to find out, which we don't know, but if we were to find out that Nancy's device was factory reset, which I don't think it was, because then, well, maybe it was. If we found out it was factory reset, do you think there's, well, obviously a reason behind that? That would point towards somebody close, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, why would they even have to factory reset the phone? I don't believe that would be a case of, I mean, if there's no contact, and even the factory reset probably wouldn't totally eliminate the digital trail through whatever carriers with those phones. So I don't think the factory reset would even play a role in this.
Well, I mean, if it was somebody close, and if it was somebody that maybe perhaps was trying to eliminate Nancy and they wanted some of their conversation to be deleted. Now, to the contrary, if the phone was not touched at all, wouldn't that kind of indicate to you that it was somebody who didn't care about anything on the phone, for one, which would indicate that their information, who they are, their text messages, none of those things would have led to point into their direction. You know what I'm saying? If the guy did mess with the phone, to me, that means that it's probably somebody close. If he didn't, it's probably further away. Does that make sense?
Yes. And for the fact that as an investigator, if you went there and you saw that the phone was factory reset, then that narrows your focus. It's within her orbit of communications, friends, her social media platforms. There's something there for the fact that during a abduction in a limited window of opportunity, they took the time to reset and try to stage certain things. And that's a totally different mindset of an offender if he's trying to possibly break his chain of events of possibly being identified due to previous contacts.
Now, according to sources, and again, we got to take this with a grain of salt, guys, because it's law enforcement has not come out with this information. But according to news media sources, they indicated that they believe that something about an Apple Watch. Now, that the location of the watch, it's a pretty weird thing to remember. I'm assuming, even though he has the bite light, I'm not sure how much movement he's doing in the house with lights on, etc. To notice an Apple Watch, that's a small thing. I'm assuming maybe perhaps during the I guess while maybe she was wearing it and he had to take it off of her and put it down, and that's why he knows where it's at, or he staged the scene. Those are the two things that make me believe that he would have took notice of something like an Apple Watch. What do you think?
Yes, I mean, the timeline suggests, and being someone that has had, I don't know how many times, hundreds and thousands of times I've went into homes and made arrests and had to secure residences. I mean, you make notes of certain things in that house, of course, for self-protection. And this individual would have done the same thing, because you go into, you never know, even the most innocent looking person can have a certain type of defensive weapon on their nightstand. And so, or on an end table or on something, and they would, if you have certain survival traits, you'll look at those things because if someone's going to defend themselves, they have to, while they may not sleep with it under the pillow, they would have that, and they may just see that the watch is on a certain table and able to relay that information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. The more I think about it, because I strongly suspect that this guy is a tech. He's tech savvy. Let me put it that way. I think he's tech savvy. If we look at this image here, a lot of people think that maybe this was a different night, maybe perhaps January 11th. I'm not under that impression. I'm definitely, after I've looked at it multiple times, I seriously doubt it. One of the biggest clues to me is this house back here with the lights on. We would have to believe that this guy just so happened to come out here on different days, odd hours of the night, and that house in the background, has the same lights on that are, I'm assuming, possibly interior lights. Maybe they're exterior lights. If they are, there's like a whole light pollution thing. So they would have to be presently either out there or, something. I just find it a really big coincidence that would be the case. Plus, what I think he's doing is I think he's watching to see if somebody's going to pick up the feed. The Nest doorbell camera, apparently, if you're watching it, it'll blink. A green light will blink. And so that kind of gives the person an indication that somebody's watching. And if it doesn't, it's just going to stay solid green, that you're on camera, it's viewing you, but nobody's watching. And his position, in my opinion, is one that is ready to run. He's got his knees bent. He's got his pant legs up. And he has his left foot and his left arm forward and his right leg and his right arm backward. To me, that's a position like you're about to turn and go. Like think about it like of a defensive back when they're playing, when you're watching a football player on the defensive side, when the defensive back paddles backwards, that's how the position ends up aligning. And I think he's doing that to see if somebody's home. That's why there's not that's why he doesn't have a backpack. That's why he doesn't have a gun, because that would hinder him if he had to run. So I think that there would be a sense of being tech savvy. What do you think?
Of course, there's several observations and things that we've looked at, and he's been successful with this committing this crime. Now, why he went to that camera and after he knew it was there, it absolutely is mind-boggling to me of why he would even put himself in front of that camera crime, and then continue with the crime. He most certainly believes he has absolute total control of the crime scene and the people within the residence. For the fact that he may have been checking it out, but to put yourself in front of that camera multiple times is absolutely high risk.
It definitely is. And that kind of leads me to believe that this guy is probably narcissistic, maybe even a sociopath, psychopath type of guy. How callous he walks up there. But, me thinking about how possibly tech savvy he is, I think that the watch stands out. I wonder if Nancy wore it and he knew that maybe perhaps that could lead back to him somehow. If it had its own service, so to speak. And so, especially given the fact that I think she had like a pacemaker. I don't know if the watch had any role in that, as it being connected, but I wonder if that's the reason why he remembers, if this is him, the watch.
Well, now, we don't know what the communications were when he went in there to get her and whatever, she didn't just sit there and not communicate with him. She may have communicated with him. Hey, I need my watch, or I'm hooked to a pacemaker. I need my medicines. There's a lot of communications that could have went on for her, that went on, because I doubt that he just walked in, never said a word, taped her up and left.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now, the way that these notes came through, it was through an online submission form. I'm assuming, I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of this, but like where I guess somebody can send in anonymous tips. How difficult are those to trace back? Do you know?
No, our training, everything in law enforcement, they taught about us about devices and everything is that now, of course, there's some highly skilled people out there in the field of cybersecurity, and that's above my pay grade. So,
but if that's all it was, right? Because if it was a situation where, because they use this platform through a server that is difficult to, I guess, locate, which I find weird, because there are some reports saying that the IP address didn't change. I find that hard to believe, given the fact that, it was almost a week later in between the first email and the last one. And usually those IP addresses change like every few days. But I think it also had to do with the same, I guess, motive of operandus, same, I guess, form, and they believe it to be, credible, because I would assume if they have an IP address, they should be able to locate this guy, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, we have what was the guy, Snowden, that came forth and said that you absolutely would be shocked at the level of how Big Brother, or how you want to address, is watching you and tracks you in communication. So I believe the technology is there, and with certain, probably if it was from a different country, I don't know how much is in country though.
Yeah. Well, this was from today. I don't know. Have you seen this from TMZ? So TMZ has, I guess they received some emails. They claim 2, but I don't necessarily know if that's true anymore, because in another interview, they talked about how they received 1 and then they got word of another one going out to news stations. Didn't really say that they received the second one. And so, again, as you mentioned earlier with the news, how they report things, it's not always 100%. Well, anyways, what they reported was that they had received two emails from a place that the law enforcement believed was possibly credible, and then they received about 6 or so others, and these other ones were claiming to be somebody who knew the kidnappers, knew where Nancy was, and for 1 Bitcoin, which I think at the highest during this entire time was like $60-something thousand, for 1 Bitcoin would reveal all this information, but didn't trust the FBI. That's why they didn't want the reward money. And to me, I always thought it was baloney, but this is what they got today, and I want to get your opinion of it. Well, first, before I play it, what do you think about that?
Well, like I said, there's not a news agency out there in the world that doesn't want to try to stay relevant. So
that's true, because there was one time where he goes, we're not going to be talking about no more of these ransom notes. We're not going to say anything anymore about it. And then like 4 hours later, he's like, we got another ransom note. I thought it was funny, but this is the most recent one. Oh boy, here looks like he's beat. Like he's gotten beat to death with these things. Let's see what he has to say.
Today is Friday, June 26th, and we have received another email from the man who says he knows who Nancy Guthrie's kidnappers are and can lead the FBI to those kidnappers for 1 Bitcoin. So the man writes that he has clearly been following things we've been saying, questioning the FBI telling us that the person who wrote this might be a female. The person does not say he's a male for sure, but he puts a big question mark there, and then also puts a question mark where we say we might be doing a documentary. So he says in this email that he is not, as he puts it, I am not the idiot who recently called in a tip about her burial site in Mexico. He goes on to say, only 2 are directly involved, and I doubt they would be the ones calling to snitch on themselves. So he has said to us before.
So first and foremost, before he talks more about, calling to snitch on themselves. And I wasn't saying that Harvey looks bad for his age. What I was saying is in that first part, he looks like he's tired of this story to a certain extent. Well, anyways, if this guy was real, one, don't you think that the real kidnapper or kidnappers would be watching TMZ if they actually sent a letter to TMZ? I would think so.
I don't understand the relationship with law enforcement, FBI, and a news agency that, for whatever reason, wants to put this out there. And the whole thing is a mystery.
Yeah.
You would think that law enforcement would say, hey, rather than releasing it, you got it in the last 12 hours or less, whenever he got it, and he's putting it out there before there's a reaction time or investigative time frame for law enforcement to look at it. So I don't know what the working relationship is between law enforcement and this news agency.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the relationship is there either. It seems like they were talking back and forth, especially the FBI was the one that was kind of leading this. And I don't know. I mean, does it say anything to you that Pima County never contacted them?
Well, if Pima County did, and when they do, I believe we'll probably realize it because they'll be breaking news.
Yeah. It seems like the FBI was the one taking the lead on these ransom notes. I haven't heard anything about Pima County contacting anybody, and maybe they have. Maybe they're the ones that played the lead on the local news stations. Maybe they have all that information, but it just kind of seems like when news media, like whether it's Harvey, whether it's Howard Bloom, they all talk about the FBI and their FBI source close to the case. And so, but with this one, he's saying that this guy, that they know where, the kidnappers are. To me, I would assume that the kidnappers contacted TMZ. They'd be watching TMZ. And they're not just going to be like, oh my God, how many people would know that they kidnapped her, where they have her, what happened to her, etc. Like, how many people are in these folks' circle that they're not going to be able to figure out that somebody's contacting the media about this? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I agree.
But, one of the things that he says is that, well, this person goes as far as to say that they have a video of Nancy Guthrie the day she passed with the kidnappers. And they haven't released it, but they said that they will if they get a Bitcoin or something like that. So I don't know. I think it's a bunch of baloney. This one, I think it's a bunch of baloney.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's something, if the math isn't mathing, you have such a huge reward from the family that says, hey, you provide this, no questions asked. From what I understand, Savannah, and a statement or two that says, we'll give you money for information leading to this. And it's far greater than a Bitcoin.
That's true. That is true.
Don't even, I mean, you have independents, not the FBI. That's just smoke screens, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree 100%. All righty. So I wanted to look at a couple of things that we were looking at when it came to the shoes. So let's bring this back up. Now, one of the things that a lot of people have said about this image here, that this could possibly be a different night, is the shoes here. It does appear that they look a different, or there's like this black part to it. What are your thoughts about that? What we're seeing right there?
Well, there's a lot of, we've had quite the discussion on it, but I do believe that even if everything that he has on one night, it could still be a different night. But I do believe from the overlay that I made and sent to you a month or so ago, I do believe it's the same night, not only for that house that you pointed out that was in the top left corner, but also there's little pinpoints of reflections and lighting that's in the background that each of the overlay matches up as you pass through those when you lay one on the other. Yes, that specific overlay there. That there's many points of things and shadows that line up. The one on the bottom left, just towards the right of his hand there on the bottom, that's a shadow that lines up also. But those small pinpoints of light and the plants and everything to me, gives it a high value that it is the same night. And those shoes, I know there's a great controversy. They had different types of shoes. And I went in there and did a lot of research and did a lot of work on it and found some images. Whereas when you filter them manually, not doing it by AI, but going and through the process of running it through filters and doing contrast, I was able to find that both shoes have similar markings throughout the shoe, including right under the cuff of the pants leg. They have those black areas. One of them is from where he's doing the flower routine, and this, of course, is where he's standing, posed to, as you said, prepared to run or flee.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, he's standing still. He's not in a motion, and his knees are bent quite a bit. So that tells me he's ready to move. And I think that's why there's more of it showing, more of the shoe showing than in these images, is because, if you get ready to flee or move and you're getting ready, I know I do it. I pull my pants up from where my thighs are, or I would pull my pants up, if I was going to get ready to move. And I think that's what he did. And
to back up your point, and because we have spoken and we did independent tests of stride, steps, and walking. And this here is more of a defensive step or stance versus his normal walking stance. And we have, if you look at the video, which I don't know if you're going to show that tonight, of him walking, that supports that this is more of a standing stance. It's not a normal walking as he does in this video. You can see nowhere during the walk is he
position like that.
Similar stance.
Yeah, nowhere there does he. Yeah, exactly. There's nowhere there that he's doing that. So he's definitely in a stance that he's going to be ready to flee. Now, there's been a lot of controversy as well about what kind of shoes these are. And you brought up an excellent image that I want to bring up now. And here we are. Now, where was this image?
This is the side profile that when he's bending over to pick up the flowers. So when you go to that image, if you seize that image and you start processing and magnify these where his left foot is, gives this profile, and then running it through the filters, adjusting lighting, brightness, contrast. I came up with this that has some interesting characteristics of it. It has a darkening where the arrow points up to the logo, coming from the logo going up. That in the right place for a logo to be, there is some discoloration there. And what could that logo be?
I mean, that looks kind of like a Skechers logo, like size. Like it's either that or it could be a New Balance N. You know, one of those one letter logos is kind of what it looks like.
Yes, I mean, I went through all the logos and I agree with you. My two top choices is New Balance or Skechers.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you can also kind of see a little bit of the laces. Monk's Intrigue, a great, brilliant guy. He was on the show not too long ago. I'm sure a lot of viewers are from his channel. Thank you so much for being here. He had thought it was Skechers, and he had pointed out a few things as well, that there was this part that was right above it, which kind of looks like a Sketcher shoe. Now, this is a different shoe that I have here.
Now, I love Skechers. I got a bunch of Skechers. I've got Skechers with laces, but the laces, they're not tied. They're just fake laces that are just there. If this is the type or model that I own, that I sent that to you today. I think is that the Skechers that had the laces on it or not? I can't remember.
Yeah, these have the laces, but I accidentally put this part over it. I got to get the one without it. There's an S right here. Let's pretend you guys can see that. And what I was pointing out, and this is what I, sent to you, is if what we're seeing, because in Monk's Intrigue video, he brought up an excellent point that the light on the shoes might be different. What we're seeing that is black could be white. And I wondered if this, this part up here that's black, if that could be this part of the shoe on a different Sketcher, but this part.
And I'm going to do some testing on that. I've got the Nest cameras. I have them all the way around my house. Actually, our part of our security system is using multiple Nest cameras. But I have two of the door, that's similar to what was on her house. So I'll do some testing on it. But we have other things that are dark that I don't think they were able to reverse it for the fact that we have the dark gloves that match the darkness. Now could different materials, and that's the reason I want to test some, could different materials that they use reflect light differently? And that has to be answered, because we have the mat that in the video when he walks up is dark, and we know it is dark in nature, for the fact that when he's standing on it, it's dark. We see what is probably a dark sole. We see the dark gloves, and all of those are consistent throughout. I know that people are arguing that the face mask is supposed to be black and that the backpack is supposed to be black, but I don't know if that's the case. I know because the backpack I looked up had different colors, and so which color pattern is it? I don't know.
That's true. The one that I found that had the reflectors and stuff, that was black, but it was a different material than what, like for instance, these straps are, and these come out super solid black. And then, I think a lot of people are assuming that this mask is gray, but it could very well be black as well, but it might be a different material. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and like I said, and I'm going to answer that question because, like I said, it is an interesting question. And when I don't know the answer, I really want to look into it and see, can I get a mask that is because I took this image and I went out there and I actually created negatives of this image but even with the negatives of it, it doesn't go totally black.
Interesting. And what do you think about the facial hair? It's showing up black. Like this, do you think hair? Because I've seen some people, like I was watching this one guy who was doing the he had the same camera and he was messing with it and he was fiddling with it, and his eyebrows didn't look super dark like this. Um, I've seen some other people, it doesn't look that dark. Do you think that this guy could be wearing a mask underneath his mask?
Yes, there is that possibility because I did some scary. We looked at those eyes, and I saw, there's that possibility because it's very interesting. But now, unfortunately, when I did some of the eye work, looking at the eye on close up, I did run it through an AI filter. And what is the possibilities that AI jumps and creates things that may not be, because it's jumping and it's doing whatever its algorithm tells it to do, and can it create artifacts that are not there? But there is a possibility that he does have a mask underneath it, because I went and looked up other human masks, and it's hard. There are some similar characteristics between the work I did with the AI program and the eye close up with what the mask that I looked at. I think I sent that to you also.
Yeah, I did see that, but like it being so dark, do you think he could have like a black mask? Because look, oh man, his nose is tiny.
I'm talking about silicone mask under.
No. But look at how small that dude's nose is. Like, do you think it's pressed down? And this mask here, if it's the one that everybody's been using, it's not one that presses down so well. I showed a video of JLR in it, and when he turns, like it's not very flattering on his nose, and his nose, he doesn't appear to have like a big nose or anything like that, but the mask made it appear like he did. Here, that looks tiny.
Well, if some of the mask, you have like a tinning effect that you got high points and it may not be flowing. It's not skin tight. So you may have some that it makes the nose look smaller than what it actually is. Or it could be someone that's had their nose flattened in some type of confrontation, because whoever's doing this most certainly has, this isn't their first rodeo. They have a criminal history, I would absolutely believe.
I do too. That's why, like when some folks, they'll think that maybe perhaps this is the brother-in-law, Tommaso. I don't, Monks brings up a compelling story or a compelling argument as to why they would need to do this. Cause that was one of my things, is like, if they were going to take Nancy, why go through this? And he came up with a very compelling argument that, that was pretty good. But, man, I forgot where I was going with that.
But it gets worse as you get older.
Yeah, no, it does. But yeah, no, he makes a compelling argument. But for me, it doesn't look like him, for one. Let me pull up. I have an image here. No, not that one. I have another one. Let's see, where is it? I don't know. I the head shape doesn't look the same to me, and the nose don't look the same. What do you think?
Like I said, we don't know what padding, what layers are there. But I watched you when you were explaining this to it, and there are certain bulges, and but it's just so hard to tell because we don't know what how many layers we have on under that mask. Because on the close-up work I did with the mask, and when you can see it, it does appear that there's a possibility there is another layer of something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, let's look at the eye. I got one here as well. Here it is. Now, this one was sent to me by Monks. And so he's pointing out there's something here on the inside of the eye, and Tommaso has something here on the inside of his eye. But what I couldn't help but notice is the almond shape of the eye versus a more narrow shape.
I would agree with you.
You know what I mean? I don't think it's the same eye. You know, it just and then there in this image here, we don't see it, but there is like a bulge to the left. And you mentioned that maybe perhaps there's a flattening to his nose due to a confrontation. Let me see if I can find this. I don't know if I have this as a still image, but it looks like his nose might be broken. And so I think you might be onto something on there as well. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think the eye shape is the same for it to be him. That's the shoe. And so let's see. Now, but you know, it like you mentioned, if he's wearing something underneath that mask, maybe so that way it masks the head shape, that's a possibility, I guess. You know, let's see. Now, one of the things you had brought up, and I thought it was a pretty good thing. Let me pull up the slides real quick. And it was answering the question as to why that time. And so let me pull this up real quick. Where is it at? Enhanced. Here it is. Okay. So you had pointed out a few things. Let me find a way to press play on this real quick. There it is. So you saw these solar lights out here. And there's a few of them in a few different places.
Yeah, there's 4 of them there. I didn't highlight the arrow to one of them that's to the right. But yes, there's quite a few solar lights out there.
A few solar lights. And what does this here say? This what are you trying to put on here?
When I was looking at it and I saw the solar lights, I went out and did some research and see what the average time that solar lights stay on after sunset. And the articles I looked at and researched is they stay on from 8 to 12, but the average is 8 hours. And so then I went back and did some research. And what time did the sun set on January the 31st?
Mm-hmm.
And I put it into the calculator. And when I did that, it calculated that the, which is if it's kind of supporting for the fact that the time 8 hours from sunset that night. And of course, anyone can go out there and look at the historic data and find when the sun set in Tucson on the 31st. And so all this is part of my research. And I typed in 8 hours and it came back at the 8 hours after sunset is 1:56 a.m. in the morning. And of course, we have movement at the house at what, 1:57?
1:47.
1:47?
Well, yeah, no, at 1:47 is when if we were to believe that the timeline is accurate, that's when the doorbell camera disconnects.
Okay, but there was some type of movement at 1:57 too, I think.
At 2:12 a.m. there was movement detected, according to the there was movement detected, but they have no video of it. Now, I wondered if they had it reversed, but law enforcement, and again, this is what law enforcement says, could it be accurate? Maybe not. It's right now, I think they're keeping things close to the vest, and I think they might be misleading a little bit. But they mentioned that on this camera that they have the motion, that there's video of people before and after. And so that kind of tells me if it's before and it's people moving around, it's probably not the backyard. It's probably the garage. You know,
well, the reason I did this research is that there has to be a reason that drove him to act at a certain time period.
Right.
And if we have all these solar lights in the driveway, we most certainly don't want to park our car when the solar lights are operating and lighting up the driveway. And so is that the cause and effect of why we waited until those solar lights dimmed to the point that you couldn't identify either his approach up to the residence or vehicles, or even to cover that. Who would ever want to kidnap someone and take them out in the middle of the night and take them into a lighted area? And so therefore we would have to wait until those lights had dimmed out. Even though it was a full moon night, it's still darkness, and a solar light is brighter than moonlight whenever they're operational and they're at operating lumens. But and so I believe that because we can see in those pictures of him standing there, and even when he's walking, we don't see those solar lights. And if you blow up the image, you most certainly can see the driveway when you look down the driveway and you do contrast and you look out past his, rather than focusing on him walking or standing. If you look past him, you can see the driveway going to the right of the residence.
And so then there's a couple of things here. One, did he get lucky and just show up, afterwards? Two, did he drive around until they turned off? Or three, was he aware already of what time they turned off, and that's why he arrived there at that time?
I believe three, that we've already done surveillance. She was targeted. Most certainly, I believe she was targeted, regardless of anything else, even if the notes are true or not. She became targeted by someone at some point, and the longer that the time from when they first crossed paths with this offender, the more organized he is, because he's creating a plan of the abduction and interactions that whenever he commits himself to this act, rather than just being spontaneous and being disorganized. There's a lot of things that are organized about this offense.
Very much so. Do you think there's a possibility that, I know a lot of people think that he's local, and I think there's a good possibility of that. But could he be somebody that traveled a distance away, i.e. maybe 10, 15, 20 miles, maybe even from Phoenix? One of the reasons why I say that is that he went on a full moon night, kind of leads me to believe all right, yeah, he went after the lights turned off, but he still chose that night. Was that because of necessity? Was that because of a time frame that he had to commit this crime? Maybe perhaps he was off of work or something of that nature. It was the weekend, and so it had to be then. And then the ransom note doesn't get sent out until, the next day at 6:48 in the afternoon. I would assume, he's that orchestrator. He did a lot of that planning, that he would have planned beyond the kidnapping and probably would have had an idea of how he was going to contact media, etc. Or, to get in contact to put out his ransom. Do you think that there's a possibility that he may have traveled a distance?
Yes. I mean, anything's possible. And now, because distant wise, but I can tell you that there's during our training, I don't know if it's still relevant now but there's a time clock that goes off within the criminal element of being with a victim. The longer you're with a victim, deceased or alive, the more likelihood you're going to have an interaction somewhere that will expose you. And typically you always have outliers, but typically there was a 7 mile or 10-minute rule of how far you feel comfortable, that internal clock, that if you were going to commit a crime and spend time with a victim that you abducted, or a homicide, and you were transporting that body, most of them were within that 10-minute or 7 miles of the residence.
I mean, that makes sense. And, I still think it's a local, especially if the ransom notes are real, because they contacted local media, etc. And it seems like law enforcement don't have, I question if they have a vehicle. And we were discussing this earlier. The ransom notes, if real, they've discussed the terms like we, kind of indicating that there might be more than two, one person. I would hold cautious on what people or what this person is saying if it's real. Brian Koberger, John Wayne Gacy, or John was it John John Gacy. Both of them said, did somebody else get arrested or was somebody else involved, or something to that effect, implicating somebody else, and there was nobody else involved. And so them saying we, I would say take it with a grain of salt if it is even real. Even if it is real, take it with a grain of salt, because they could be just minimizing their involvement. But what do you think there, Steve, when it comes to that?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you are involved in this, you most certainly want to misdirect and stage what you can, and you want to put out as much false information out there as you can. And for the fact that we're not dealing with someone that is of honor and high morals, you're dealing with a criminal. I mean, this is a nutcase.
I agree. And, going back to the words there, they use the words buried with nature. It's not she passed away. It's not she's with God. It's buried with nature. How do you, what does that tell you? Like when you hear that, if it's real and if it is from the perpetrator, what does that say to you about the perpetrator?
Well, unfortunately, we've reached the technology part of it, that whenever you write an email or otherwise, you have some editor or part of your computer that jumps in and says, do you wish us to help write this?
Right.
Or make it, adjust it to whatever understanding. It probably does that more with me because I'm not a great writer. I see it constantly. Every time I send an email out there, it wants me to rewrite it totally. So I don't know how much of that could be AI versus common speak. But as they did with the Unabomber, if the FBI believed that this was his normal pattern of speech, I would expect at some point they will release this information, such as they did with the Unabomber, because if this is his natural speech and certain words are used, because some people have highlighted certain combinations, such as buried in nature. That's not just something he would write in a abduction note. He would also use that throughout his normal speech patterns, or parish, and all these other type of words that how does he normally communicate, normally write. And so we'll have to see if they release something similar to what they did with the Unabomber that wound up with him being captured.
I watched that video of Savannah, and I aired it last night, and this was one that was aired out in late November, so roughly 2 months before Nancy's disappearance. Savannah goes home, and it's a beautiful piece. It's the city of Tucson is celebrating her being back. She's out in nature. I found that to be odd. She's in the desert. She's one with, there's a bird of some sort, a hawk or an eagle comes back and forth. Maybe it's an owl. I don't remember. And it lands on her arm, and then she goes to the university, and she's on the cover of a magazine, and it's like rumors that she's coming back, etc. And do you think that video may have been watched by the perpetrator and or played a role into something in this case?
If Savannah is the focus of this stalker or whatever interactions, or the mindset of this individual, then absolutely anything involving Savannah, I guarantee you, if Savannah is his world, he watches her every day that she's on the show. He watches every special because he has a special relationship with her from his standpoint. his perspective. And now, can he be slighted and hold grudges and that she's ignoring him? And has he had contact in the past with her? I would believe so. And but he would, if he's from that area, he knows all her hometown stuff, and he would know all those designations that was in that short documentary or whatever they had of Savannah returning home.
Well, I mean, he addressed if this is real, he addressed the note to her, like, and it was, "Hello, Savannah. We have your mother, Nancy." I mean, it sounded almost like Hannibal Lecter, "Hello, Clarice."
Yeah.
You know,
you don't have to point out Savannah and say, "We have your mother." Just simply, "We have your mother." All of us only have one mother. So
so we have your mother, Nancy.
There's no need to highlight those points. That's additional information that's not necessary. I knew, we know our mother's name. There was more verbiage in there than what was necessary.
Man, I wish they would release it, because I think there could be some clues in there as to motive, as to who this person could be. The whole "Hello, Clarice" contact in the media. I've been saying it for a while that I've thought that this was like a fantasy type of thing, and I thought to myself, somebody contacting the media that's like BTK, that's like Zodiac, etc. It seems like it was wanting to be a spectacle, being seen on camera. Maybe perhaps that was wanting to be seen on camera. He wanted maybe perhaps Savannah to see him. I mean, he got Savannah to see him, got Savannah to be scared of him, and got Savannah to talk to him, respond to him. And so he was able to do those things. And then, you started off with like "Hello, Clarice," kind of like, I mean, not "Hello, Clarice," "Hello, Savannah," but kind of very similar to that, the way I read it. And
that's a good point. And I guarantee you this individual has watched that movie. And so you may be exactly right.
Yeah, I think this is a person that I think that's who he associates himself with. Brian Koberger associated himself with like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. And he put in his words things that were similar to Patrick Bateman. And I know when I read that, I was like, man, that seems very similar to that. And, the flowers buried with nature, that's part of nature. The flowers on top of the I don't know. I mean, there's just so many things that stick out as too coincidental. Does that make sense?
Of course. Yes, absolutely. Agree with you. Good observation.
Yeah, I don't know. And I could be wrong, guys. I could be wrong. It could be just, I'm looking into things too differently or something. But I strongly suspect that this goes back to her. I mean, because at the end of the day, if this was for financial means, they send out a letter or note saying she's gone. The following day, since Savannah has no way of contacting them, they go to the media, just like he did. Go to the media and to speak to him and say, "Hey, we hear you, we understand, we're ready to pay." And then they don't capitalize on that. Does that tell you that this may not have been for financial gain? I mean, even if they could have lied to her and say, "All right, yeah, send us the money and we'll tell you the location," and then disappear.
Yeah, it's far more like they're trolling and enjoying the control, regardless if it's true or not. The person that, if it's true, then we have someone that is enjoying, they're not sorry. I can't believe anyone that goes in, takes an 84-year-old woman from the security in sound sleep and drags her and injures her and allows them to pass away, and then contact the family and says there's nothing that could have been done. I mean, that's all bull. But regardless if it is the offender or if it's someone else, they're lavishing in this feeling of having an impact on Savannah and poking the bear, trolling her, and causing emotional damage. Regardless, whoever the party is, if it's abductor or not, is one sick individual.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And I like when I heard that the apology stuff, and I was like, man, things aren't making sense, because behavior and action and words here aren't making sense. Like the person that I see on that camera, the things that you just mentioned dragged her, because that blood on the ground, she wasn't very far from the ground when she coughed it up. And so you're absolutely right. Dragged her on the ground, picked her up, escorted her, terrified out of her mind. No medications, no nothing. And then almost in a way of saying, and I think it was you that mentioned it to me, that almost in a way of saying, like, you could have taken better care of her.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they're trolling, poking the bear. It's extremely, I don't know. I'm sure there's some term that describes that type of mental or disease or pathological thinking that someone would do that. But yeah, it's it most certainly is a sick and dangerous individual. We know, there's no doubt. Probably both of them, regardless if whoever's writing these letters, true or not, they're all, you know, even the one that got caught is a nut.
Yeah, that's true. You know, a lot of people think that he's changing his plea, and that maybe perhaps he got a plea deal of some sort. Typically, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but doesn't that usually happen with whatever it is that they have to offer panned out? Like, doesn't something have to pan out first before you get a plea deal?
Yeah, I mean, well, now there's a lot of reasons that our court systems, it makes no rhyme or reason why they sentence certain people with certain things.
That's true.
But generally, the more information that you have that you can flip on someone, the better plea deal you get. So if you don't have a lot of information that's crucial to a case, your plea deal is not going to be what you hope it to be. It may get you a few days off your sentence, but it's not going to be. But if you do have certain details and able to flip, then of course you're going to get a good deal.
Yeah, you would, but I just don't think that. I don't think that's what it's going to be, and I think we're just going to find out that he changed his plea and he was trying to just get, you know, a shorter term, you know, by cooperating in that standpoint. You know, law enforcement here recently mentioned that this case is going to be solved because somebody's going to dime somebody out, somebody's going to speak in a bar, those type of things. That doesn't scream confidence to me. Do you think that this case is going cold?
No, as long as they have DNA. I mean, ultimately, that's what's going. I think that's going to be the final thing. And I believe there's DNA there. Do they have it currently? Did they mess up to a degree of losing many possibilities of gathering evidence? And we can all agree the processing of the crime scene and what was left behind versus what most of the CSI guys I worked with and the investigators I worked with, and even as I was an investigator prior to me being reaching and becoming a CSI guy, that the doors would have been gone, the security door would have been gone, the back door had been gone, the pots had been gone, the mat had been gone, the tiles off the front porch would be gone.
Mm.
I mean, there'd be a lot of stuff that has to be replaced. And because you only get one chance at just because there's a doorknob there, and at minimum, you take the doorknobs, and at maximum, you take the whole door, which that's what I would have done. For the fact, I don't know, at some point, did we follow, what part of the door did the individual touch? Don't know. I solved a homicide on DNA off an airbag. And it wasn't on the first submission. I think it took me like 5 times of resubmitting that airbag until eventually we got to the right portion of the airbag that had the offender's DNA on it. because you can't see DNA. And of course, you go from what most likely the doorknobs and handles and natural reaching points, but you can also have other areas whereas you may have shouldered into it, and there's some type of Lacard's principle exchange of some type of DNA, hair, fibers, or otherwise that could lead to the suspect. And so, but I do believe that while they left a lot of evidence behind, that they probably do have we know they have a DNA profile that is unidentified. Does that mean it's the offender? No, it could be some other just casual worker that was in the house at some point, or it could be some type of transfer of, whereas throughout your day you go and you handle things that are handled by strangers. Then
Nancy
you get your
Zuber.
car, and you'll have a transfer that is not you, your wife, or anyone, but it's whoever pushed the buggy across the Walmart shopping parking lot right before you touched it. And you can have a transfer to the door handles, to your steering wheel. It has nothing to do with who the offender is. And could it be that type of DNA? If so, they've got a hard road if it turns out to be that type of transfer of some innocent. And just because it's unknown doesn't mean it's the offender.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it kind of sounds like that's what they have right now. When I listen to, again, I think this was inside sources, that they have a bunch of I can't remember the words or the verbiage that they used, but it seems like they had a bunch of unknown DNA in the house, and that they were siphoning through it, and it could take years before they come up with an answer. Connie LA 66 comes in saying he told her, reference Silence of the Lambs when responding to him. That's why he said, talk to her and you'll see. I'm not sure the reference. What is that?
Yeah. And that was a great movie on several aspects, for the fact that a lot of the profiling stuff, there's truth in all manners or basis of truth in these, that you humanize her. And we saw Savannah talking about humanizing and talk to her and create that bonding and in so many ways. And I have to agree with Connie. Absolutely. I believe that is correct, especially with the specific, if that's verbiage there.
That's true. That is true. Let's get the likes up, guys. We're almost at 500 likes. We got about 1,200 people in here. It'd be great if we can get the likes up. Did you see the other emails that were sent to Harvey Levine today, claiming that the person has a video of Nancy with the kidnapper? Of course, the person wants Bitcoin to release the video. Harvey was right. He said, send us a screenshot. You don't have to send the whole video, but send a screenshot. And I think that they'll play it. I don't think they have it. I don't think it's real. What do you think?
You got an individual, it's a multimillionaire, that you can call up, or you could have someone through some network get in touch with and make that same offer that, hey, I have pictures of your mother with the kidnapper, but you're going to settle for $50,000 or $60,000? No.
I agree. It doesn't make any sense, because the end of the day, the outcome, I'm assuming, would be that the person would get arrested, etc.
You're just likely to get arrested if you did this $60,000 versus $1 million. You roll the dice that if there's a 95% chance I'm going to get arrested, I'm going for the million. That at least, I'm not going to get arrested for 60,000 when I can get arrested for $1 million.
Jen's dog comes in with $9.99. I see I'm not sure what that is being discussed in chat. Any relevance to this case? I'm not even sure what that is. Do you know what that is?
That's some of the sort of like witchcraft or some of that. If they're talking about the Wiccan, that
Wiccan, yeah. Celebration of cycles of the moon. I don't know. If this guy's sick in the head, he could have a lot of different reasons as to why he would be doing something. Being a full moon, I don't know. Could you see a reason that maybe perhaps he chose it because it was a full moon? I think that would hinder what he was trying to do.
Yeah, we don't know what his schedule is and why he chose that. Was it because he wanted to do land navigation, or what type of vehicle did he use? Or do we have a golf cart? Do we have a four-wheeler? Or do we have I don't know. How was she moved? How was she taken? Was it a panel van? Who knows?
Gotcha. Oh, people are saying that Annie is a Wiccan. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. That's not my expertise, so to speak.
Yeah, it's okay, but my pay grade.
So, and guys, please put a couple of stars if you guys have any questions, of anything you wanted to ask Steve about, especially when it comes to things like blood spatter, anything with the timing of that night. You brought up an interesting point that you looked at the video of the porch guy walking up, and you were able to determine based on the shadow length and the width of the sidewalk and the moon positioning that you believe it's a little bit later than 147. Is that correct?
It is, and I use different heights for the fact that for every inch of height, it can change the timeline a couple of minutes. And so I went from like 5'2" to 6 foot. But you can also, if you have those exact dimensions, you can reverse engineer. And if you knew the exact time that he stood on there, like if there was some data somewhere that we're unaware of, you could reverse engineer and determine with some degree of certainty how tall he is. I think they even did that with bin Laden but they did that with daytime shadows versus lunar shadows. But there's no difference. You're dealing with reflection of sunlight, or you're dealing with direct sunlight. Shadows are shadows, and if they have the exact time, you could reverse engineer and say, "Oh, this guy's at a certain height," because you can go to the scene and get the exact measurement of that sidewalk, and go out there and get the exact measurement of where that shadow is. Have someone stand there and measure that shadow from point A to B, and come up with a relatively good height. Is that what they did? It's possible. Don't know.
Well, I know that there was a picture, an image of them walking around with like a height chart, and they were walking in and around that area. So I wonder if that's what they were trying to use, and use a camera source that mounted on.
Well, you can, and you can do that, and then you can support that. You always everything is supporting evidence that
right.
We do this, and then we have another avenue of investigation that supports that fact, and
right.
And between the averages, it's going to work out. You're going to be pretty close.
And so here, according to this is at 72 inches, which is 6 foot tall, and at 2:10 local time in the morning, if it was 2:10, he'd be 6 foot tall. Correct? Is that how I read this?
Yes. And then I did to set the parameters, and I went all the way down to, I think the tallest I went was 6 foot, and the shortest I went was, I think, 5'2".
Now it's interesting because at 5:12, which is when law enforcement says that they have at 2:12 software detects a person on camera, but no video available of suspect, which I find suspicious because there should be some sort of notification, like even if they had Nancy's phone, and I say this because if he didn't wipe it, she should have alerts on her phone that somebody was out there earlier than 147. Wouldn't you believe that to be the case?
Well, it depends. If you have it set up to alert you, because certain things, like we just had all our cameras got updated this week, and we still haven't reset all our alerts. And so right now, some of our alerts are not up. But So it depends on how your phone is set up and how does what are those alerts, and when she's asleep at night, what type of sleeper is she? How good is her hearing, even if she has hearing aids or not? And how sound of a sleeper, would it even wake her up? And I can tell you from doing my during my career approaching residents at night, certain things as you approach, if certain sounds are made and you start hearing dogs bark inside or outside, and lights start coming on, or you start hearing movement from a house, you can pretty well tell when someone's because night sound travels extremely well at night. And but I'm talking from experience of approaching many houses in the dead of dark, even answering calls when there is active people, of how you approach a resident in the dark. Done it hundreds and thousands of times.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I would assume that there's still some sort of documentation that law enforcement could access.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have this, and this is what they released. Now, they may have page after page.
But don't you think it'd be important to let people know that this is when we believe that they're there? Because that establishes a timeline. And if you're expecting people to come up with tips about vehicles that are passing by, if you have a vehicle that passed by, I mean, you would expect that, hey, I saw a vehicle pass by at 12:40, right? It was at 12:40, or maybe even a little bit earlier than that, but they may not be like, it's too early, so it's nothing, right? And so they don't turn it in. I would assume that you want to be as accurate as possible on the timing of which you believe that they arrived. I find it weird that they don't have it there.
Well, with law enforcement, you control the narrative. And so they will release key things that they think are helpful to the investigation. That if we release this time, we want people to go out and check these specific times and look at it. What corresponding supporting evidence can you give us? But they can also withhold details in certain times so that we don't have those false confessions. You don't have those people that's going to step forward, because they may have a time that says at 4:05 a.m. I'm just making up something. That 4:05 a.m. we have another detection.
Yeah.
The garage door opened. The car in the garage left. I don't know. I mean, there could be things that we don't know of that they're holding, that only the suspect, that they'll know for a fact that that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're doing that with the timeline of when they're arriving, that's I don't know if you want to do that when they arrive. I mean, it's one thing in the middle. Yeah, it's one thing in the middle of things. Like if you had, like you mentioned, like here we have 1:47, the doorbell camera disconnects, 2:28, the pacemaker disconnects from the phone. So that is the implied timeline that this suspect was at the residence. What he does in the middle there, you can mess around all you want because it doesn't make a difference. It's once you get beyond those two, earlier than 1:47 or after 2:28, where that becomes sloppy, I think.
Well, whatever law enforcement's looking for, when they release this data, they're looking for something that is extremely important to the case. That they, at these times, that if we have information about any individual specifically around these times, we need that data. And I mean, like I said, law enforcement tries to play things close to their chest. Although we have two agencies, competing agencies, we got the FBI working independently, releasing certain information, and then versus we have a sheriff having interviews, releasing certain information. So I just don't understand that.
Well, there's apparently a documented history there. Yeah, there's a documented history there between the FBI and the sheriff there, which I think is probably also played a role as to why we're 145 days without any answers. I think that if they were to work together, a lot better. I think they could have helped this case move along quicker. But I say that to say that I strongly suspect that what we're seeing here as far as the doorbell disconnecting and the software detecting a person on camera, I feel that might be backwards. That at 147, he's detected on camera. I think he's waiting out there for a short period of time to see if anybody picks up the camera. And then he doesn't have his backpack. He doesn't have his gun. So he's still got to go, and he's got to load up to a certain extent wherever his vehicle or wherever those items are located. I'm assuming they're in a vehicle. You know, I just feel that it's backwards a little bit. And I mean, that would put him outside of the house, you know, quite a bit of time, you know, between 147 and 212. But, you know, he's still, I don't think that at the time that he's on camera that he's made entry into the house. Do you think that there's a possibility that when he's on camera that he's already been inside the house?
If so, it makes his going to the camera even the more mysterious.
Yeah.
I mean, this frontal contact and knowing the camera's there and then approaching it a second time, multiple times, because like I said, there may be more times. We just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely could be. I don't think he's been in the house when he's approaching here.
Yeah, I mean, if you already got control and been in the house, why would you even, unless you're trying to send a message? Yeah,
or I mean, if there was a change of plans, which I think he had to take her out of here. I just, and one of the things that that Monks had pointed out on his video is this I guess glare right here on the eye, the pupil, is an indication that he's like, his eyes are actually focused in on the doorbell camera, which I would agree is his eyes never leave the doorbell camera. And I think it's because he's wanting to see if it starts to blink. And so if he's doing that, then that definitely means that he hasn't been inside, because, you know, I know a lot of people say, you know, they'll shame the family for not having Nancy's Ring login and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, does your family have yours? Like, do your kids have your Ring information or
well, actually, we have theirs. we pay for it, but they're the main controllers of it.
Gotcha.
You know.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't have my parents. I don't know if I should feel bad about that. I don't have my parents, you know, security system on my phone. I have my security system on my phone. You know, I don't know if it's the same one. You can't be logged into both at the same time. You know what I mean? And so, but he's staring at the doorbell camera the entire time, which I think is another indication that he's looking for that green light to start blinking, which I think would be an indication that that he hasn't gone inside, because there's the possibility that Nancy could pick it up. Let's see. We're going to be answering a couple of a couple of questions, guys. Put a couple of stars in there. We'll also answer all super chats. Real quick, I want to go back and say thank you to Bree McVie. Thank you to Hildis Blendico. I think I said that right. I apologize if I didn't. Buffy's in the house with her membership for 38 months. Thank you, Canadian True Crime Buff. Also, thank you to Leanne Cooley. Also, want to Connie. We mentioned her comment, and Jen's dog as well. So thank you guys for those that have supported the show tonight. We'll be answering your questions. Put a couple of stars in the chat. That way we know you're talking to us. Let's see. What does Steve think about the FBI trying to trick them with the pantry money set? Oh, the Paltry money set. So they asked for $4 million in Bitcoin. FBI sent $152. What do you think that? What do you think about that whole scenario?
It's shot in the dark. Let's ping it. Let's see where it goes. You know,
but you know the amount. They weren't going to get anything unless they opened it or moved the money. Unless they got the money and moved it into their wallet. They weren't going to know anything about it. Is $152? Do you think that's going to motivate them to move it?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. They're asking $4 million. You're shy quite a bit. Do you think that could have scared them off?
No. I think that the person that had that, if it's true, and obviously it's pretty true that you can't track that stuff, because otherwise we'd have a warrant for someone and somebody be in jail right now. But I had thought that there had been advances made, and that even Bitcoin going through certain exchanges can be tracked under certain conditions. And so, but yeah, I think pinging it, it's worth a shot. That if they're going to get anything, if they do answer it, or if they do look, and why 152, I don't know. Is there a certain threshold for is that the smallest Bitcoin that you can buy? There has to be a reason for 152. I don't know. I don't know what the exchange is.
Do you think that if they thought it was more legit, that they would have put more?
Do what?
Do you think that the amount is an indication of how legit they think that the ransom notes were? Meaning, if they thought that it was actually them, maybe they would have sent a little bit more to entice the person to open it.
Absolutely. And if they thought they could trace it, they'd send the whole amount.
That's a true story. That's a true story.
Yeah. You're going to get back in a week. Yeah, let's just, if you can trace it, send them everything.
That's true. That does speak to the confidence in their ability to get it back. Learning design leader says, we don't know if the door is unlocked. I'm assuming she's saying the front door, as he's approaching. Yeah. Now, my argument to that is the back door was propped open and left open. If he made entry to the front, as much as there's no reason for him to be out there in the front, but if he made entry to the front, there'd be zero reason for him to go and prop the back door open. Based on the blood, we know that was the exit point. So,
like I said, I've been there and I've worked cases, and not a lot of them, but I have seen career criminals give themselves an out that if law enforcement, they lose control, that they have a avenue of escape that's unhindered. And so they don't have to fumble going out the back in a worst case scenario. Is that what happened? I don't know. But for that to happen, and there's no forced entry on the front door, it either has to be unlocked or they had a key to it.
Or they went through the back.
Or they went through the back, yes. But I'm saying that if they went through the front, there is a thought process, and I have seen criminals open a back door, alternate escape route versus their point of entry.
That's a good point. Could he have propped it open so that he could run out there? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they had the door propped open, like with something, or did they just unlock a door?
Oh, I'm trying to. I know that at least unlocked. Propped open, I don't think so. I think that they were pushed slightly ajar. Being propped is a more of a additional act versus just being ajar.
Right. And so I think that makes somewhat of a difference, because I think that, to me, tells me that they had a plan to remove Nancy out of the back door.
Yeah, and of course, like I said, once again, we have things that are touched by an offender that may or may not have been taken and placed into evidence for processing.
That is true. Let's see. Put a couple of stars, guys. I'm going to go through a few of these. I scrolled up only a little bit, so if I didn't, then get to you. Please put it again. No criminal in his right mind would cash in $151.52. I agree. I think they would look at it as, no, that's a trap. Let's see. I'm scrolling through this quickly, guys. So if I don't see any stars, I pass by them.
what was the original amount for the ransom?
So it was 4 million, and then by the Thursday it was going to go up to 6 million. And then if not retrieved after a few days after that, they were going to kill her. So to go from that threat to that, and then also supposedly in the second ransom note, which is, they say is not really a ransom note because they didn't ask for any money. They say that she passed shortly after the abduction, which again, the first ransom note came a day and a half later. I mean, what do you think her chances of survival at, the next day at 6:42, given her age, no medication, the blood she had already sustained, the injury she already sustained? I mean,
Well, I know that with children abductions, the average is only hours. And so I don't know what the stats are on older citizens or senior citizens, because how often do we have structured millionaire abductions or someone connected to this type of individual that has that much financial to be able to pay millions of dollars that we have happening in the United States? I can't place. We have a few in history, Sinatra, but there's not a lot of millionaires getting kidnapped in the U.S.
There's not, but I think that's why, they're. I mean, and maybe Nancy is considered a millionaire as well. I'm not sure what her net worth is, but she's definitely an easier target than it would have been for Savannah or even anybody else in that family. I know that some folks were asking, like, why not, kidnap Annie? Well, Annie also had Tommaso, and she's younger, and there's it's a different thing. But with her, she's elderly, she's by herself, living in a home by herself. That
Yeah, if you're
making a target, easier target.
you look for the easiest target. You don't attack a residence that is more secure. You have males within the residence. You go for the easiest target. And in this family, we can look at it that we don't do brother, because the brother is a former military, and Savannah would have some type of security team, or possibly, I would expect, and a great security network at her residence and alarm systems. And that may be the case with Annie. I don't know what type of alarm systems they have. They may have one that is actively working at all times. I just don't know.
That, and I don't know. I don't know. I guess you'd have to ask a psychopath or a sociopath this question, but like, is there something more about a person that you're affected? That let's just say Savannah is the affection here. Could the person feel more towards taking her mother than taking somebody else related to her? I think that closeness relationship between Savannah and her mother might be more enticing to somebody who's focusing in on as a predator like that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes. You regardless, when you look at these serial offenders, Bundy, doesn't matter, they all do these types of acts to feed their needs.
Mm-hmm.
And this abduction was to feed whatever this offender's need was, it financially or romantically or emotional, to feed that. It's no other reason that he didn't do this for, he did this for self-interest. And regardless if it's revenge, monetary gain, or otherwise, it's all about him. And ultimately, he succeeded so far at getting away with it.
That's why I want him to release the letters, because it's going to say something about him. It's going to say something about him. Even if we don't, it may not be something that's like in your face, but there's got to be something there. And I go back to the whole buried with nature. I wonder if there's like because it's not like, Gone with God or Buried or is with God or things of that nature. It sounds almost like poetic. It sounds almost Native American, if you want to look at it from, that point of view. It could also stand, kind of seem more like what Nancy was doing. I mean, Savannah was doing in nature in her video. I mean, there's so many different avenues that it could be.
Well, and we have to look at it from the point, is this something that a key point that the mother and communications that makes this letter true, that that Nancy had at some moment or sometime they had a communication or a conversation about nature, or that mom at one point said that whenever I pass, bury me with nature? And is this a key point that we're just looking at from the perspective that it's totally the usage, but it could be something that tells them that that note is true.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's weird. I wish there was more of the note that we could see, because I think, like I said, there's something there. Nan from MI, Daniel, do you think BK's doors were left open by T&A to throw off investigators how the perps got in, or maybe cleaned up the scene they found Sunday morning? Great show tonight. Great questions. BK's doors. Do you think, I think maybe you meant Nancy's doors were left open. Oh, the back doors. Got it. I think the back doors were left open to throw off the investigation as to how the perps got in? I don't know. I mean, that's a lot to, well, then again, I mean, some people do some staging stuff that is, people stay, there's been cases where staging has occurred. But usually when there's something staged, there's a reason behind it, or not a reason, but it's an obvious thing that you can tell, whether it's a ritual staging, whether it's a sexual staging, whether it's a staging to hide evidence. Leaving the back door open, what's the staging? I mean, I guess maybe to throw off the entry point, but what do you think there, Steve?
Well, if they're leaving the door unlocked, they don't have to. They have keys to the house. They have access to the house anytime, so they don't need to leave anything unlocked. But for them to have to, and not saying that they're involved, but you'd have to be on the premise that they're having to leave this unlocked for a third party that they haven't entrusted with a key.
That's true. And but leaving the doors open, do you think that could be part of a staging in this case?
No, I mean, you have to say that they're involved. If you're saying that they staged it and they left the doors open for this individual to get there, then they.
Well, maybe not necessarily they, but like the perpetrator, regardless of who they are. Do you think that having the doors propped open could have been to mislead law enforcement?
No.
Yeah, I don't see where.
No.
I don't see. I mean, even if let's just say there wasn't any blood up in the front, unless this was, if this was family member and they were not very smart, lock the door behind them with the key.
Yeah, we have a woman that was taken from the house. I mean, there's nothing to stage by just leaving the door unlocked or open.
Exactly.
It's meaningless.
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said that earlier. Like, when there's staging involved, it's usually obvious as far as what they're trying to do, whether it's a staging for ritual purposes. You can kind of tell what they're trying to do. If it's a staging like for like a sexual fantasy posing type of thing, you know what they're doing. If they cleaned up the place, I don't know if that's necessarily considered staging, but if you find evidence of chemicals and stuff, you know what they were trying to do. They were trying to clean up. But leaving the back doors open,
we have to clean up DNA.
Right, exactly. For leaving the back doors open, I'm not necessarily certain what that would accomplish. And
the only thing it would say is that, and tell me that, oh, okay, like you said many times, that the initial plan was to take her out the back door. And
I think so too.
Changed their plans.
If doors were really propped open, could be airing out the house or loner perp. I think more so with the loner perp. I think that if you had two people and you were propping the doors open, is because you were having to carry her. And if you were carrying her, you would still have, two people carrying her out the front. And if she was being carried, the blood that is coughed, her face is facing down, and you can't. It's weird. It would be really weird to carry Nancy in a position where her face is facing down, even if you had two people. It'd be even weird for the people carrying her. It would be uncomfortable. So, I think it's because he had to get her out of the house. Now, the interesting thing is did he prop it open as he was going in, or did he prop it open after he'd already made entry and realized how unmobile she was? You know what I mean? I don't know if you could tell from it either when what happened first either.
Well, my nightmare is that, and how truthful are officers with you sometimes, because you go in that if you find a entry point, you don't go through the same entry point, and you try to minimize the handling of evidence. And you have to be careful that you don't have some officer out there that opened the door and propped it open so they didn't have to handle the doorknob, and then they don't fess up to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy what people do at crime scenes. You go in there and you make the joke that, well, it's a circus. Where's the popcorn? And because they've messed it up so bad. You got so many people going in and out, and is that a possibility? It could be, but that's where you have to have that relationship with those officers. Did you open that door? Did you prop that door open, or is this suspect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Miss Canadian has a good question. She goes, would law enforcement pick up porch guy first and press him for answers, or wait till they have everyone in the gang? I think they pick him up first. I mean, if they got any evidence on one guy, they're going to pick him up, and then they'll use him to get everybody else. What do you think?
No, absolutely. You can't let, now you may identify porch guy first and then go out and start rounding up the orbit, or identifying his orbit of friends and who might also be involved in this case. Because once you identify whoever porch guy is, you're going to do a detailed investigation into his contacts, his digital footprint, especially around these dates and leading up to this date. Because if more than porch guy is involved, communications has to happen. A meeting place has to set up. What's the geofencing, and who was meeting on certain dates and times, and communication, text messaging, phone calls. But if you find out that you identify porch guy and he has some burner phone, or he just has some cheap phone plan, and he's pretty much a hermit and he doesn't talk to anybody, then of course you start looking at, oh, he did this on his own for whatever obsession he had with Savannah or Savannah's mother. People get obsessed for a lot of different reasons.
Very true. Very true. Old Sheepdog says, what, if any, difference is there between expirated blood on seed tile compared to unsealed tile?
Yeah, and I see the point of, whereas because every blood drop that's dropped from a certain height impacts a surface, and treated slick surfaces have more of a crowning effect of those little satellites versus unsealed at very minimum. But there is a difference, and blood drying and being soaked into the tile will react. It's just like a countertop in your kitchen, sealed versus unsealed, or your kitchen tiles in your house, of what gets on them prior to being sealed. Any liquid can have an effect on, and that's something that me and you have discussed about. Whatever's on those untreated or untreated tiles on the front porch, doesn't matter. The processing that could still be done to this day, if they haven't been washed, or the evidence that's left behind, they could still be processed. And what would that story tell? There's no telling.
Yeah.
Now, has law enforcement done that? Did they go out there and luminol it or put other chemical reagents on it to get certain reactions? I don't know. Because I don't see any evidence, because even with luminol, you can see when it's applied that there's a certain alteration to the surfaces, and you can see that something was applied chemical. There's a powdery light type substance left. And with the other chemicals out there for the testing and the development of blood stains and transfers and identification of things, and for those reactions to occur, you see those. And I haven't seen, we didn't see it in the Enton video of anything that looks like it been processed. Now, is it different? And I don't think I saw it with, when did your friend make that video with his drone?
I think it was like a few days, like maybe two to 3 days later.
Okay. And I don't think I saw anything that looked like any type of chemicals. And I don't know when the last drone image was made, but there would be evidence of that. And on those tiles of being processed, which it's amazing to me that the tiles are still there. Like I said, I'd be out there chipping them up.
And I mean,
let's get out there right now. I wish it was that whoever could get there. And this is something that, yes, this here is going to explain a lot here in just a second. Go ahead.
And so, yeah, one of the things that I had asked you, and this was back when we were covering the Brian Koberger case, was like, how far can somebody walk, and it'd be noticeable with luminol or amino black after the fact. And it was quite a bit of a difference, even once the footprints disappeared. As you can see, there's very, very hardly visible. And then over here.
Yeah. At 40 feet is what happened. And the setup of this is that you had asked a question with Kohlberger, how far could you track someone by someone has stepped into a pool of blood or a partial. It doesn't have to be a full pool. It could just be a small pool or a few blood drops or any place that you'd have a quantity of blood. How far would that transfer and be stepped out? And so we set up this catwalk for my wife, Mrs. Steve, to walk. And she walked that whole circle. And when you look at the first image from the catwalk, when we set it up, you can see where the first steps are heavily, and then she'd go down and she'd come back around, and we have a 40-foot of what that image looks like. And then we have at 132 feet, you still have those transfers. And I think the same would it be on the porch and on the walkway, that you should be able to see that.
I agree. And I thought that was excellent. Even through
at the 132 feet, you can't see anything basically. But
yeah,
when you did it with luminol, it lights up the world. Great detail.
It does. And so, I mean, there's so much you can tell from that. You could tell how far they walked together, which direction they went. If it's a dirt area, if they walk up to, down that sidewalk and it just stops, right? And then you see tire tracks there. Well, I mean, that's pretty dang helpful in my opinion.
Which not only this though, but whoever the offender is, if he stepped in blood and that is a shoe trail or whatever, when we get to the dirt, what does that blood do? Now we have a coagulant that locks into the sole of the shoe. And now it gets transferred into his vehicle. It gets transferred into his home. Now you have that Lacard's exchange principle going reverse. And hopefully that they have soil samples from the residents that you would collect, so that because you know that you have blood and people have to walk, and if she's bleeding, what are the odds at some point the offender stepped in some blood and then steps into the soil adjacent to the house? Because while soil may be consistent or not so consistent, but that may be common, there's certain characteristics that can be isolated to a residence. What fertilizers does she put on her plants? What type of bug spray or of different chemicals and elements that could be introduced that's unique to the Guthrie household, that soil sample. And that's just a technical part of the CSI of how we look at things and what we collect that are not out there and being talked about.
And you make an excellent point there about the chemicals and about, what she treats her home with, or mulch, or whatever the case may be in the house. Because we know that based on the camera approach that he's coming from the dirt yard. He's coming from the yard. He's not coming from the driveway. He's coming from the yard, most likely from the window that was closely there. And, there could be a lot of things, especially if he did travel a distance away. Not saying maybe more than a few blocks, maybe a couple of miles, whether it be 5, 10, 15 miles away. There's going to be a difference there. Julie says DT needs to compare the perp's head and T's head from a different angle. Send it to me. drunkturkeyshow@gmail.com. I'll look at all the angles and compare. I'm trying to find similarities if I can. Let's see. Dean says, in my experience, most elderly going to bed at 10 p.m. means bathroom breaks at 2 a.m. Worst case scenario, did NC have a landline? As many elderly have kept landlines. Maybe she tried 911. I don't know. I don't know if she had a landline or if she tried 911. My assumption is, and I think she wore hearing aids, and she may not have been wearing them, that she probably was woken up by him. That's my assumption and speculation, but I would bet that was probably the case. I think she was woken up from bed from him, so I don't think she heard anything or had time to get to a phone or anything like that. But that would be my guess. Is the goal for most abductions murder? That's a good question. I don't know. What do you think? I'll let you answer that one first.
You can have everything from the assaults for gratifications. You see it, an abduction can be 20 feet. It can be from a running trail to a wood line. So looking from that standpoint, but if you're dealing with there's communications as far as, and if they're true for funding, then of course it's financial. Mm-hmm. It's a great question, but it runs the gauntlet. Only the offender that is if you're having to do certain things to either get money or to satisfy your personal needs, and you're having to do it through abductions, you're a gift. You're a special type of person.
Yeah.
That motivation, and it never changes. This person is capable of doing it again. And
that's a good point.
Being successful. He's been successful on this one.
I agree. And especially if it's an urge, or like Ted Bundy would say, or I think even Dahmer, that they would have like a craving or a feeding the beast, so to speak, type of feeling, then he's definitely going to want to try to do this again. And I don't know if it's like, maybe they go in there knowing that, but I think that at a certain time in most abductions, the realization is that they're most likely going to have to, if they try to want to, get away with it. Because if the person they abducted, it was either turned over, they have valuable information. If they were alive, that could lead to the arrest of the perpetrator. And if, and if they are found even deceased, there's a lot of information on their person, DNA evidence, stuff like that could probably lead to a suspect. So yeah. I don't think it's necessarily the goal.
Right here. Don't get abducted, guys. The second location is no better. It's never going to be better than where you're at now. It's I'm telling you, Mrs. Steve and I, we had that conversation actually last week regarding this when we were talking about the Guthrie case. She says, no way in the world, when we were having one of our discussions, Mrs. Steve and I, we have strange discussions, but and that's one of the mainstays is that no, You wouldn't get me to the front door, let alone, that pretty much is wherever first contact is, that's where it ends.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Locked and Loaded says recon was done, but used freaking shrubs.
And that's a good point. Let me tell you, and we had talked about this before. Was that some cultural things of why are you doing that? That's more along the messaging and it has nothing to do with for the fact that there's, and I'm not trying to train people how to do certain things, but even from tape to aluminum foil, there's certain ways to interact or even a simple spray paint to disable that camera system. There's so many ways you could disable that camera system versus, like you said, go get a rock.
Yeah, I was gonna say the rock right next to the shrubs that he was picking up. There was a few hundred of them right next to it, and he didn't do that. DT thinks the perp has a broken nose. I don't know if the perp has a broken nose. I think he has a small nose, based on the images that I've seen in the video. His nose seems very small. I do see a little bit of I think even Monks had brought it up. There's like a drop all of a sudden right there. And then there's also an image where there's like a bulge to the left side. I don't know what those things are. He's wearing a mask, so it's kind of hard to tell, but I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility that he has a broken nose. What do you think?
He can, but then again, if he's thinking it through, did he tape his nose flat? I mean, we don't know how organized he is and what we're trying to stage and mislead. Are we trying to create that flat nose? And I mean, we don't know the background of this offender and how misleading he can be, because there's so much data that he gave us, even from his. Now, one thing I don't believe, and I don't know whenever you're going to get into it, might be a different show, is that his walk pattern, his gait, that is extremely telling.
Well, I don't think it's natural. The first part, I think it's show when he has his head down, then he's like swaying his arms, and then his gait is almost like 1 foot over the other. And it, to me, reminds me of like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker when he's walking. It just seems like fake to me. Let's see. Ruby goes, Daniel, did you know that the Guthrie family has declared Nancy deceased as of yesterday? I did not know that. I don't know. At some point they're going to kind of have to and start that process of healing, regardless one way or the other. Was Nancy Guthrie's back door within their garage, or did the garage have an outside door? I believe the garage had a door. There was 2 doors. There's a garage door that you can go through and then you can enter into the house. And then you had, I think, 2 back doors, to be honest with you, that you could have entered into the house. One was blue, and it was there was 2 blue doors. As you're entering the back door, let me see if I can pull them up, because I'm over here with my arms wailing around, and I have pictures. Let's see, because there's a few doors that are back there.
Yeah, it appears like there is a personnel door to the back side. Goes in a garage area, unless there's some type of mudroom over there.
Yeah, I think there is some sort of like mudroom here, and then there's that blue door right here, and there's another blue door like back here, and then there's the door that was propped open. I'm gonna see if I can get a better. And see, this is the other thing. I mean, he damaged this, so he was not. It was not above him to damage something. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And there's one of the pots that was left by the door here that's empty, that was missing on the drone footage. I highly suspect that it was picked up by law enforcement. And this is the one of the doors that was still propped open. And so you can still see it propped open, which is because I think it's a pot that's holding it that they've not collected at this point. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but Don't you think they should have collected that pot?
uh, I don't know. I'm so. I mean, I'm not surprised they didn't.
Yeah.
For the fact of they didn't take. If you didn't take the mat, why would you take a pot?
I mean, he touched it. He had to have touched it to put it there. I would have taken the door too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. If your law enforcement friend says no, I didn't open that door, I didn't prop it open, we're taking it. I mean,
oh my gosh,
if she's big in security, I mean, I don't know what the crime rate is in that area, but we have a lot of security.
Yeah, I agree. This seems directed towards Savannah, and Savannah's life is eerily similar to the Tepe family. Interesting. Tepe family had somebody travel a long distance away to commit that crime. Let's see. We'll do a couple of more. By keeping the head down and turned at an angle, the suspect minimized the surface area available for 3D modeling and biometric correlation. Yes, and I think more so. Well, I think it was more of an act, but I mean, at the end of the day, he gets pretty close and he's kind of fumbling with it and he's looking directly at it. Now, maybe perhaps he was under the impression that the light was going to mask his face more, but when he's approaching it and he's doing this thing with his hand, he doesn't have the light on at that point. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that he had a rhyme or reason for it, or do you think it was just him acting weird
for
the way he walked up with his head down and turning at an angle?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's trying to minimize his profile and change his some of those biometrics. I absolutely agree that he did that for a purpose. I mean, he didn't walk up there. He wasn't scared to walk up there, but he wasn't going to do it in his natural upright stance. He wanted to stage and mislead as much as he could.
What does that say, though? What does that say to? Hey, look at this.
Thanks for having me, Elizabeth. Yeah, this.
Apparently, the emailer refuses TMZ's photo request. Big surprise. This is the guy that said that they had a video of Nancy, and they said, "Well, give us a screenshot, and we'll get you the Bitcoin." No surprise.
Well, I mean, with the ability of AI and data now, that he might be able to create a screenshot.
That's true. He definitely would. But I think that law enforcement should be able to tell that he's.
Oh yeah, but I mean, we're dealing with, regardless, you're dealing with someone that wants a Bitcoin versus a couple $1 million.
That's true. And so the question here is, do you think, Steve, what is your opinion? Do you think this is a lone wolf?
There are certain times when I first saw it and they said abduction, I thought there was a team, and we discussed that probably within the first week after the crime. And we discussed it at length back then. But the biggest thing that I believe the reason he acted alone was that he approached that door wearing part of his backpack has these reflectors on it. And who, as part of a team, wants to any part of that member that if this goes bad and law enforcement's chasing us, we got one guy that has reflectors on that wouldn't speak up and say, "Hey, take those out." Now, my training and everything, when we black out our equipment, everything from our night sights to anything that reflects. And I'm talking about the specialized teams of whenever you're doing certain operations. But this guy chose to wear things with reflectors. And I don't see that being part of a well-planned event, whereas we have Tony over here. You put on the reflective vest and you walk up to the, and because even if you escape, he still knows who you are if he gets caught. And
Right.
so that kind of, I look at it from that standpoint that he's acting alone, unless he's some type of sacrificial lamb. And I don't see that. You can't have confidence in sacrificial lambs that they won't flip on you. So I look at it from that standpoint that, yeah, he acted alone based on his wearing the reflectors.
And if he acted alone, I mean, a lot of people were thinking that there was a walkie-talkie in his pocket. What are your thoughts on what it could be in his pocket?
Well, since I saw that backpack, and I don't know if you opened that email that I sent you about what possibly could be in that backpack. I've changed opinion on if that's true, because I looked at. I don't know if you're going to get in that night or not.
Well, I mean, do you think it's an antenna? Do you think it? Well, let me put it this way: do you think it's a walkie-talkie?
When I first saw it, I thought it's an antenna, and it's either a walkie-talkie or a scanner for law enforcement. And I would go, if it's a walkie-talkie, then of course we have to go along lines that it's a team effort, and we have more than an offender. But if it's a scanner, law enforcement scanner, then no, we have that he's just covering his bases, and he's listening for dispatch that either a neighbor has seen him and is calling on him, or calling on his parked car that he's parked up the road, or Nancy has called 911 and he's scanning those. And so of all those, if he's lone wolf, it's a scanner. If there's more than one, it's a walkie-talkie, because you'll have someone off site scanning and sitting on the high ground, watching the approaches for vehicles coming, and monitoring law enforcement channels.
Now, the problem with it being like a radio or walkie-talkie is that the space in which that's here from this pocket and the positioning of the walkie-talkie, I find it difficult that it's just going to stand straight up like that, and it's not going to slide into the pocket, especially while he's moving around, bending forward, things of that nature. It stays in position. You know, it stays there. So to me, it feels like whatever's in there fills up the entire pocket.
Yeah, I've sent you two devices that I thought it possibly could be. Now, is it a controller for a drone? Because, like I said, that backpack has something that is reflective, and possibly is at some point, it appears that there was a drone possibly in that backpack, and that's just due to reflections. And like I said, that is a possibility, because when I saw that reflective image of when he's walking away and he's about to step off, there's a frame of his backpack that, and I did the measurements today, and it's within the parameters of what a four-winged drone would look like, pressed against that type of reflective material. And the dimensions of the backpack are consistent with the dimensions of a drone being able to fit in there. And if that is something that's thick in the front pocket, it could be a controller.
I mean, that would be I saw the pictures of it, and I have the email where you had sent me about, the drone and Wi-Fi. But I think I have the pictures in text message. Let me see.
Now, I can't remember which way I sent you the.
Yeah, it's right here. I got it. Well, makes me wonder of a bunch of things.
But you see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I wonder.
I mean, did we set off 100 yards away and send the drone in, and then because doing the research, once I went with the drone, is that a possibility? And then I said, well, drones work because I own one, and I've had interference with Wi-Fi with my drone, and and that's the picture of what the controller is and the antennas. But then, but now, did I email you the picture of him on the porch, or did I send it in text message?
Let me see. I don't know if I got that one yet.
No,
because I got that, and then
let me go check my email, see if it went out.
Yeah, let me see. Okay. Oh, backpack. Yeah, here it is.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? That does look pretty compelling. That does kind of look like a drone in there. But that's weird.
But then you go over here to the measurements, and I pulled up what my drone is, and the measurements of the width and height of what a drone is, and there's many drones out there. And then you look at the backpack, and it falls within those parameters. And when I did that, then I look at the pocket, and you saying that it looks like it's some type of pack. Then I thought, well, and then I looked up the abilities of drones interfering with Wi-Fi and cameras, and that's a good article. And absolutely, it could possibly explain why the neighbor's camera system also had that hiccup.
Man, I didn't see this one, but when I pulled it up, I was like, yeah, that does look like there could be one of those in there. Man, but that would be really crazy.
I mean, it's organized. I mean, why do we have that? Now, it doesn't mean that it's in there now. I mean, it could be that backpack was used at some point and set out in the sun, and it was transposed on a prior carry. I don't know. I'm going to have to get my drone and put in there, and I'm going to do a test.
But that would make sense. That would go back to my point.
It's not so much that the drone is carrying a jammer, but it's the Wi-Fi signal of how your controller works with the drone itself is very close to the frequency of what Wi-Fi's operate on. And if you have a powerful drone, it will knock your Wi-Fi offline with your devices.
Really?
Yes.
I was not aware of that.
Article I sent you.
That is crazy. You know, but and you're right. I mean, maybe this is his backpack that he uses all the time. Maybe he flies a drone all the time, and that impression is just always there because of use. But that would go back to my point where I think this guy is techie.
Yeah. And but like I said, when I read the article, and let me pull up the go to the summary. Go all the way down to the summary. Just reading the summary itself, I don't. Your eyes are better than mine. It's too small for me.
Yeah, it goes, in this article, we have looked at the ability of drones to interfere with Wi-Fi. It is clear from the experiments performed the drones can easily affect the Wi-Fi because they emit a frequency at a very similar range. Newer technologies allow drone pilots to fly at a much larger distance, but this comes at a cost of greater interference with Wi-Fi routers.
And it up in the article itself, it even goes in there, and that's just one article. I mean, there's many articles, but looking at that and seeing that, and as he walks away, you don't see that drone image the whole way. It's only at that, and I hadn't seen it on other people's videos, but since you sent that to me yesterday, your actual video is when it really popped, and I appreciate you sending that to me because. Once I saw that, I said, that's interesting.
Yeah. No, that is interesting. I hadn't picked that up, man, until you showed me this. That is wild. I'm actually kind of speechless because I mean, like I said, I don't know if this is like, you know, if
Yeah.
that's in there at that moment, it could be, but that
But
definitely looks like a drone, and it definitely
but then
looks
when
like
you
it
go
was
to
in there
the
at one point.
pocket, now you go to what's in his right front pocket. Is
That's
that the
true.
controller?
That's true. Well, that's an amazing pickup there. And again, this kind of goes back to what I've been saying, where this guy, I think, is techie. I think he's techie. Man, well, I'm gonna have to chew on this some more. This adds to a lot, in my opinion. You know, because to me, did he use it that night? I mean, if that's what he has in his pocket,
They used it that night. Yeah, absolutely.
then if
Oh,
okay,
man.
so if
Now
go ahead.
it just struck me. That'd be one reason where your reflectors, as the drone comes back to you with whatever lights on it, you would be able to see where you're at specifically.
That's true. It'd be able to find you if you have those reflectors on. But you know, remember how I mentioned? Well, no, that's different. But this would make sense. I mean, this would allow him to park a distance away, fly a drone out there, surveil it. I mean, he could have been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That could have been how he's been surveilling, you know, Nancy in the house for a while.
Yeah, I mean, you can set a half mile or mile from the residence, and as long as you know where the location is, you send it up, you'll be able to see when the lights come on, go off. You can monitor and surveil. You don't have to be in front of her house or driving by her house and leaving a digital trail.
That's true. That is true. That's huge, Steve. This is big. What do you guys think in the comment section? If you guys think this is pretty crazy, hit the like button, please. I'd appreciate it. Let's hit the like button. Let's get that over 1,000 likes. I'd appreciate that if we could do that tonight. Steve's done a lot of great work. He's pointed out a lot of things, and yeah, I think he caught something pretty huge there. And I think that maybe perhaps this guy had been, you know, people are creatures of habits. If he surveilled that place before with a drone, why would we think that it's out of the realm of possibility that he would do it again? Now, my biggest question is, why is he taking it in the house? You know what I mean? So that's why I wonder if it's just an impression, you know, and if it's just an impression, that still can tell us a little bit about who he is. You know what I mean? But, you know, you compare it with what's in his pocket. You're right. There's something to think there about. Jeez. Wouldn't people have seen a drone? Maybe, but not at 2 a.m. And all he has to do is modify the lights on it.
Yeah, you just tape them.
Exactly.
Don't think, well, I can't say that. I think
you know, and this could be why they have such a hard time finding a vehicle passing by, etc. It's maybe because he was parked somewhere a little bit further down the way and was able to get out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you got around that residence, and I don't know how much research you have, but there's a lot of gullies, and there's a lot of side access in between these residences that they're not packed, and you have these places where people could park, and you could fly a drone out of that's probably within a few hundred yards of it or a half a mile. I mean, it's just which drone is it, and what kind of drone is it, and how efficient are you with handling a drone, especially at night? It's different skill sets.
And I wonder if they have, like, you know, nighttime vision on these drones.
Absolutely.
You know,
they do. And you can buy, I mean, it depends on the power of the drone, what you can fly. I mean, you can get, and they make devices that are just in the different light spectrums and from FLIR onward to what's your mission in the use of that drone. And there's a lot of devices out there for a lot of different reasons. And if you're a tech guy, you can pretty well figure out how to skirt the the edges of what you should be doing with one.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, we got some things to chew on, guys. We got some things to chew on. We're at 2:20. I've kept you pretty late there, Steve. Is there anything you want to plug or say to anybody before we call it a show?
No, I appreciate you having it. It's been an honor, and I hope I haven't confused the issues more than where it should be. But I just appreciate everybody that's here, and let's just keep the family in our thoughts and prayers, and hope that DNA takes this nut off the streets.
I hope so too, and I hope there's an arrest soon. You know, I'm concerned about the investigation, but I'm hopeful that I'm wrong, and that law enforcement, and I know law enforcement have a lot more than what we know, and so I'm just hopeful that there's something that they can pinpoint somebody and have enough to make an arrest and have that happen soon, and then get some answers for the Guthrie family and for Nancy, and get her at the very least a place of rest. And so I want to thank everybody tonight for joining. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. If you guys are into the Pokemon stuff, tomorrow I'll be dropping a new video between me and my spouse, and it's on a channel called Married to the Hobby. It is me and my wife. We talk about Pokemon. We talk about she does these little mini brands and things of that nature. We did a video today. We're going to be releasing it tomorrow. We are at 226 subscribers. We're trying to get to 500, so I'd appreciate it if you guys could help us out and get us there. Share, like, and comment also here. Thank you everybody for tuning in. It was an amazing time. We'll see you guys a little bit later this week. I'll probably do a members only on Sunday, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you next time, guys. Peace out.